Now, an Emeritus Newsbrief, I'm Lynn Huston. A scathing review of the Department of Labor's Wage and Hourly Division office. That story coming up in just a moment, including some incriminating phone calls. But first, the Postal Service says it may not have enough money to make it through the year. So says Postmaster General John Potter, who told a House subcommittee today that it's already in the process of making nearly $6 billion in cuts and still could face a $6 billion deficit by 2010. His solution? More cuts, including 1 day of delivery and more financial help from Congress. More on the Emeritus News National World page. 2 notable discrimination lawsuits have been settled. B&H Photo, a photography and electronics supply house in New York, agreed to pay $4.3 million to settle a discrimination suit brought by the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission on behalf of 149 Hispanic workers. The EEOC says Hispanic workers were paid less, not offered promotions or company benefits. B&H Photo agrees to correct the pay scales and observe labor laws. And Kodak subsidiary Qualex agrees to pay $272,000 for discriminating against older employees when staff cuts were made. More on those stories on the Emeritus News Employment page. And stunning taped phone calls that were part of a Government Accountability Office investigation into wage theft complaints. The GAO claims the Department of Labor's Wage and Hourly Division office didn't do enough to help workers whose employers would not pay them. In this phone call, a GAO investigator posing as an unpaid worker got the cold shoulder from a Wage and Hourly Division office receptionist who clearly wanted nothing to do with his complaint.
So you really have no power to do anything? I mean, all you did was just call and ask her to pay me. I mean, she's just...
And well, the thing is that I explained the law to her. She knows that she needs to pay you. It's just that she's saying she doesn't have the money to. I can't bring blood from a stone. I am bound by the laws that I'm able to enforce, the money that Congress gives us, and all of that lovely stuff. If you are having a problem with what our office is capable of achieving based on the laws that were written, then you need to write your congressman. Okay, do you know who your congressmen are? I mean, we can use all the help we can get.
In a probe of real cases, the GAO says the Wage and Hourly Division took sometimes over a year to respond to employees' complaints, and cases were dropped when employers did not return phone calls. Employees in the Wage and Hourly Division say it's due to staff shortages, months of backlogged cases, and poor training. Former Supreme Court Justice Sandra Day O'Connor, testifying before the Senate Special Committee on Aging, says more has to be done to deal with increasing cases of Alzheimer's. Her husband John among them.
The Alzheimer's disease is the 6th leading cause of death. And today in this country, more than 5 million Americans have the disease. And our study shows that in the next 20 years, the numbers of people with Alzheimer's will increase more than 50%. And our nation has no real plan for a federal effort to find a solution or to help manage the costs, and we need to do both. First, I think we need a major prevention initiative to be developed with the goal of preventing the onset of Alzheimer's in most people. And based on the research that we heard about and the testimony that we heard, we think that prevention can be achieved within a reasonable time if it has the proper funding and support. We're on the edge of being able to do that, but we really must get some funding and support, and it requires both public-private joint ventures to do this with the scientific community. And it requires major data sharing, which is not happening at present. Second, we need to reimburse the providers of health and social services to Alzheimer's patients for perhaps about 20% of those services. I don't think we can possibly do it all. Third, I think we need to start an Alzheimer's Solutions Project Office within our federal government. Find a focal point for this. And that office can direct and implement the various care and improvement initiatives that Congress agrees should be undertaken.
And a report from the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation and the Trust for America's Health calls for a new agency to take over the problem-plagued food safety and recall system in this country. The report claims the current system is outdated, ineffective, and leads to Americans becoming needlessly sick. The FDA food safety system has been battered by that bungled recall of salmonella-tainted peanut butter, which sickened more than 600 people and is tied to at least 9 deaths. The latest on the biggest issues and public policy at emeritusnews.com. That's an Emeritus News Brief. I'm Lynn Huston.